guys, I'm here today with a new episode of Fairy Tales with Jen. If you would like to catch up with previous episodes, you can do so by clicking the link up here, and I'll also leave a link to the playlist in the description box down below. As you've probably guessed by the title, today I want to talk about The Little Mermaid. Now, mermaids appear in folklore across the world, so if you would like a book recommendation that talks about that, I would recommend this one here, which is Mermaids, the Myths, Legends and Lore by Skye Alexander, which talks about just that. But today we're just going to be focusing on one mermaid, and that is The Little Mermaid. And that actually has a definitive author, which is quite unusual in the fairy tale world. And this author is Hans Christian Andersen. It was written in 1836 and published in 1837. Whilst it is an original tale, it was influenced quite heavily by a novella that was published in 1811 called Undine, which was about a water spirit that agreed to marry a knight because she was striving to attain a soul. So if you are used to the Disney version of The Little Mermaid, this is not quite what the Hans Christian Andersen version is. I remember my grandparents renting the VHS of a cartoon adaptation of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid instead of the Disney version, and being very surprised when I was quite young. So if you would like a recommendation for a copy of The Little Mermaid, I adore this edition here, which is illustrated by Hayu Kusama, who is a Japanese artist who I really admire. And she's done all this beautiful patterned artwork inside. I'll show you a couple pages. You just get a beautiful sense of the waves and the sea. There's another one. It's just all these beautiful patterns and I absolutely love it. So I'll leave a link to that book in the description box down below. But briefly, The Little Mermaid is about a little mermaid. She has several older sisters, and when you become 15 as a mermaid, you're granted one day to go to the surface and live on land. And then from then on, you can have one day a year doing that. She is the youngest. She's jealous of her sisters. She eagerly awaits the stories that they have to share after they come back from being on the land. So on her 15th birthday, she gets the chance to go out into the world, and she sees this party with a prince, and she really quite likes him. Then there is a storm and his ship sinks. She then rescues him from this sinking ship, and she brings him onto the land and she revives him. Then she hides and she waits for someone to come and find him. Someone does come and find him, a woman, and she's very upset to realise that the prince thinks that this woman has saved his life, when in actual fact it was her. The Little Mermaid talks to her family about what it's like to be human and also what it's like to be a mermaid. And she's told that mermaids live for 300 years, but humans have the chance to live forever because they have a soul and mermaids don't. So humans, if they're good, can go to heaven. Hans Christian Andersen's work is quite religious in places. So she decides that she wants to try and attain a soul, and she also feels like she loves this man. So she goes to the sea witch and says, please, could you give me legs? And the sea witch says, okay, I will give you legs, but you have to give me your voice. She also says that if she gives her legs, she's going to be in pain. The Little Mermaid quite naively agrees to this, not really knowing what pain is. And then she wakes up on the shore with legs that she finds very, very difficult to use. And it's a really interesting exploration of bodily difference, this actually, and disability, which is explored in a really interesting way by Northern Ballet and their production of The Little Mermaid, which I'm going to be taking you behind the scenes of in the next week or so. If you're watching this and that video is already available, I'll link it up here and down below. If not, it's coming very, very soon. So The Little Mermaid, as I said, is in a lot of pain. The prince finds her and invites her into his house, but he's not treating her in the way that she hoped he would. He's very patronising. He lets her sleep at the end of his bed. He pets her all the time. Basically, she's like a piece of property to him. Meanwhile, the prince is planning to marry the woman who he believes had originally saved him, and the Little Mermaid is left panicking because part of the bargain was, no safety net folks, part of the bargain was that if he doesn't love her after a few days, she's gonna die. It's all or nothing. Can you make someone love you? The answer is no. So she discovers that he doesn't love her. There's nothing that she can do. She realises she's about to die. Her sisters in the sea also realise this, so they go to the sea witch and they bargain with the sea witch for a knife to kill the prince and to get their sister back. The sea witch says, okay, I will grant you with a knife, but you have to first give me your hair. Again, discussions of bodily difference. So the mermaids cut off all of their hair, which is seen as a massive sacrifice of their femininity, and then they go to the surface to find their sister who's on on this boat and they say to her, we've got this knife for you. If you kill the prince and his blood drops on your feet, you will be turned back into a mermaid. The Little Mermaid thinks about this and she decides that's not what she wants to do because she loves the prince and she doesn't want to kill him. So she waits for the sun to rise, at which point she evaporates into all of this foam and then she flies into the air and she has attained a soul. It reminds me a little bit of His Dark Materials. If you've read it, you'll understand. I'll not say more than that because it's a bit of a spoiler, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. And she's just floating in the air. It's a very, very dark tale, but I love it. I love the issues that it tries to explore here. As I said, bodily difference and disability. But not only that, the history of the tale is extremely fascinating. As I said, Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Little Mermaid in 1836, and he wrote it because he was in love with his friend Edward Collins. We have letters that they've sent to each other, and Hans Christian Andersen was telling him that he had all of these feminine desires for him, that Edward made him feel like a woman. He said that he loved him and he'd heard that he was going to be marrying this woman and asked him please not to. Edward Collins did go ahead and marry this woman though, and it broke Hans Christian Andersen's heart. So we can see similarities between The Little Mermaid and Hans Christian Andersen. The Little Mermaid, when she's granted legs and is able to walk on land amongst the humans, has her voice taken away. She's not allowed to tell people how she feels about them. And Hans Christian Andersen also feels that he can't tell other people how he feels, especially about Edward, because of the way society treated LGBTQ folk at the time. So not only is it an exploration of bodily difference, but also of otherness of all kinds. Hans Christian Andersen explores all of these religious themes, not in just this text, but in other texts as well. He was very religious, and yet he was brought up being taught that queer people did not have souls, that they could not go to heaven, just as the mermaids believed that they had no souls and couldn't go to heaven. But the Little Mermaid was striving to attain one. She wanted to blend in. She wanted to be like other parts of society. If only she could just shake who she was. It's not just the fairy tale then, but the history that is incredibly heartbreaking. And I think because of that, because of all of the elements that have gone into this fairy tale, all the themes that it explores, as well as the history if you delve deep enough, it makes it one of my favourite fairy tales. And I didn't think that that would be the case when I was younger. When I originally heard the fairy tale, I wasn't really drawn to it, but it has grown on me. I feel quite a kinship with it, and it has a very special place in my heart. So that's everything that I wanted to say with regard to The Little Mermaid today. As I said, all other episodes of Fairy Tales with Jen are linked in the playlist, which is in the description box down below. Let me know if you have any requests for other fairy tales you would like me to dissect and talk about the history of in the comments section down below. Also, let me know how you are, because I love having a chat with you guys in the comments. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you very soon. Lots of bookish love. Bye.